Koko wa Kaiju, Senki no Sekai. Match 1. Showa King Kong vs. SpaceGodzilla by Christian Salibert. Furue groaned and whimpered as he lay down in his hut. The corns in his feet just hurt too much. He was about to call someone in so he could start complaining again, when suddenly Sakurai ran into the hut in a panic and grabbed his rifle off of the wall. "What's the matter?" Furue asked, sitting up. "A giant lizard with crystals sticking out of it," Sakurai said quickly. "What?" Furue cried. "It's after the berry juice," Sakurai explained. "Hurry!" Furue hurried to his feet and the two rushed outside. He gasped as he saw the horrible sight that awaited him. The menacing form of SpaceGodzilla towered high above his head. Giant crystals littered the once flat area the village was located in. Many huts had been trampled underfoot by the beast as he searched for what had drawn him here, the scent of the Soma berry juice. The little creatures that lived in the area attacked SpaceGodzilla with their spears, but the cosmic demon paid them no attention as he walked upon them and their dwellings. Soon, he spotted what he was after. Not too far away from him, sitting in the base of a large wooden gate, sat a group of large containers of the crimson liquid, the scent of which played with SpaceGodzilla's nostrils. The crystalline terror let out a shriek, and suddenly, waves of green energy sprang forth from his shoulder crystals. The energy lassoed one of the containers and brought it to the monster's mouth. The container ended its telekinetic flight as SpaceGodzilla grasped it from the air. But before the reptile could drink, another mighty roar pierced the sky. SpaceGodzilla looked up to see a giant ape on the other side of the wooden gate, reaching out at him. SpaceGodzilla's eyes narrowed as he realized this beast no doubt wanted the juice as well. As a warning shot, SpaceGodzilla fired a blast of his Corona beam. The jagged bolts struck the stone edges of the gate, throwing sparks and rocks in every direction. But King Kong wasn't easily deterred. The ruler of Faro Island took hold of the giant logs that made up the gate and began to tug. Within seconds, Kong had pulled out a large chunk of the gate and lifted it high over his head. This beast would pay for daring to attack him. With a powerful heave, Kong tossed the logs directly at his opponent's face. SpaceGodzilla reacted quickly and generated a crystalline energy shield. The gate chunks smashed into the shield and quickly crumbled to the ground. The deep SpaceGodzilla shrieked at Kong, as if taunting him. Kong quickly marched towards his foe, crushing the remaining containers of Soma juice beneath his feet. SpaceGodzilla howled angrily and let loose with another Corona beam. The blast initially exploded at Kong's feet, but then traveled up his body until it made contact with his face. Kong went flying backwards, not expecting the assault, and hit the ground as he clutched his face. His skin burning, Kong immediately got back to his feet and charged. He quickly reached SpaceGodzilla and began pounding on the alien reptile with his powerful fists. SpaceGodzilla cried out as Kong struck him again and again. The space monster lashed out with his own claws, slashing at Kong's arms and releasing electrical surges at the same time. Unlike Earth's electricity, these surges burned Kong and forced him back. Then SpaceGodzilla opened fire with another Corona beam, strafing Kong across the shins and bringing him down face first. SpaceGodzilla shrieked out as Kong crashed to the ground. He figured that would be enough to get the point across to the clumsy ape. He began looking around to see if there was any Soma juice left. He noticed all the tiny creatures on the ground had disappeared. Wham! A mighty blow to the face sent SpaceGodzilla staggering backwards. Kong had ripped one of the demon's crystals out of the ground and was now wielding it like a club. SpaceGodzilla turned to make the gorilla pay for turning one of his own crystals against him, only to be met by another vicious attack to the face, dazing him. Another blow to the top of the snout actually knocked the mighty alien beast silly and left him unmoving for a moment. Kong discarded the crystal and quickly ran around to the reptile's backside, grabbing hold of his tail. Planting his feet firmly in the ground, Kong began pulling on the creature's tail. Kong wanted the beast out of his territory and off of his island. Suddenly, a pulse of orange energy surged through SpaceGodzilla's tail and exploded out of the cluster of crystals on the end. The blast forced Kong to let go and sent him crashing onto his hindquarters. But before the mighty ape could get back to his feet, SpaceGodzilla began flashing with brilliant blasts of energy. Almost instantly, his legs and tail were gone, and he had taken to the sky. Kong reached out for SpaceGodzilla, but the beast was too high. He pounded his chest and roared angrily at the alien creature, demanding that he come back down and continue the fight. SpaceGodzilla responded with a barrage of corona beams. The golden bolts circled and surrounded Kong, blasting him in the ground all around him. Kong was engulfed by explosions, his vision obscured by smoke and dirt. But despite the cover, each of SpaceGodzilla's blasts hit home. The last blast hit Kong in the leg and took him down. The giant gorilla couldn't get back up right away, but stumbled around, unwilling to concede victory to his foe. Circling Kong in the air, SpaceGodzilla's body crystal began pulsing with energy. All the crystals jutting out of the ground began to rumble, and then shot into the air like rockets. Kong managed to shakily get to his feet just in time to look up at them quizzically. The crystals covering SpaceGodzilla's body flashed again, and the alien demon barked out a cry. The crystalline missiles suddenly turned direction, pointing down at the ground, and began rocketing back towards the Earth. Kong didn't have time to move before the crystals began impacting all around him. They detonated with tremendous force, sending explosions of alien energy and crystalline shards flying everywhere. Kong was thrown about by the explosions when suddenly one hit him directly in the back, flooring him immediately. Another crystal struck Kong, and then another. The primate roared in defiance, but his cries got weaker with each hit. Soon Kong went silent, and eventually the explosions from the crystal missiles faded. SpaceGodzilla continued circling the battlefield, making sure the fight was over. His opponent wasn't moving, but he had to make sure. Green energy bolts blasted out of SpaceGodzilla's main shoulder crystals and enveloped Kong's body. Slowly yet surely, they brought him to their master, until the two kaiju were nearly face to face. Nearly unconscious, Kong still managed to growl at SpaceGodzilla. In an instant, SpaceGodzilla deactivated his gravity tornado and unleashed a powerful blast of his corona beam. The impact scorched Kong's already burnt flesh, and the beam continued pushing Kong down. Down, 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 until the once majestic ape crashed into the nearest mountain. SpaceGodzilla cut his beam and let Kong's body roll off the mountain and onto the jungle floor, landing at the mountain's base. This time, SpaceGodzilla opened fire on the mountain itself. He hit it with a few more corona beams, blasting off part of the mountain and covering Kong's prone body in thousands of tons of dirt and rock. SpaceGodzilla circled the area again. The juice was gone. His foe was beaten. He had no more use for this island. Cackling evilly, SpaceGodzilla disappeared into the clouds. Back at the ruins of the village, Sakurai, Furue, and the surviving villagers emerged from their hiding places. "Let's go home! Furue whined. We're going home, Sakurai told him. Kono, we're going home, Furue cried happily to their translator. With what's left of Kong, Sakurai continued. With what's left of Kong? Furue asked worriedly. The winner, SpaceGodzilla.